All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. And thank you for joining us for the October's episode of the Evolving Women webinar. My name is Margaret Stout, and I am the Community Partnerships Associate for Sister Reach. Sister Reach is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that's centered around reproductive justice, or RJ. RJ is the right to have absolute autonomy regardless of gender and sexual orientation, free from coercion and shame. This also includes the choice to parent, adopt, and if one is to parent, the right to raise a family in a secure and safe environment. The Involving Women webinar is for women to have a safe space to care for ourselves mentally, physically, and emotionally. So for this month, we have Sharolyn Payton, whose workshop this month is Unpacking Your Power. So, Ms. Payton, how are you doing today?
I am actually doing great, Margaret, and I am excited to be here with you.
I'm excited to have you on as well. So could you tell the people a little bit about yourself, like a little bit about your background?
I sure will. So I am a, excuse me, I guess I don't know what to tell everybody. Life, business, and community coach. I specialize in working with nonprofit organizations, small and minority and women-owned businesses. And the center of my work is really very justice centric, and to help organizations to identify ways that they can align with justice work. So I'm always pleased to work with Sister Reach and other organizations that center marginalized individuals as well as communities in terms of helping them access resources and to just improve overall. So that's the bulk of my work. And of course, I work with individuals in terms of the life and business coaching that they may need to launch a vision, realign a vision, or just really start a new practice for themselves personally, speaking of what Evolving Women is centered on. And that's why I'm also excited to be a part of that.
Well, thank you so much. So you're the perfect guest that we have this month. I just want to thank you for sharing your skill, your experience with us and our Facebook viewers. And for our viewers, don't forget to share it. Don't forget to like it. Do some watch parties. Y'all join in so that we can all have an opportunity to evolve as women. So without further ado, Coach Payton, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Margaret. So I've been really excited about this topic. I want to say, you may have to rein me in at some point, but so I noticed that a lot of my conversations recently have been with people about feeling disempowered or feeling powerless with so much going on in the world and so much just bearing down on us. In terms of just our emotional and physiological, just abilities, right? Our capacity to just even show up for ourselves. So I invited a couple of people who I've had this conversation with to join us today, because I am really excited about what it means to unpack your power. I often frustrate people when I say, I don't empower people. It is not something I do. And to me, based on both my faith and my practices within my coaching style and framework, people are inherently powerful already. We are innately, by creation, by design, filled with power. And so what today I want to help us look at is what that means. What does it mean to show up already with, some autonomy, your personal power, your will, all of these things, and what that looks like, change my view, for us to really unpack it, we first have to know what it is. So first I want to say that power, in its essence, is access to something. In the world that we look at out here in terms of society, power is access to resources. So that's money, position, status, affluence, influence, connections. So we see power in that way most of the time. We don't think about the intrinsic part of our power, the thing that was with us when we were created. So I want today to talk more about the intrinsic. There's going to be a balance. I have 10 things that I'm going to bring into the space for us to consider that we need to unpack. So I am going to bring a balance of this external power and this intrinsic power together for us to think about today. So again, so intrinsic, again, so when we think about the power that we have internally, that would be our personality, our temperament, our natural skills, abilities, and giftings, even if we're still developing those things, to think about self-awareness, self-esteem, all of those things play a part in our power and just recognizing them. So for the sake of time, I'm not going to talk a lot about power. I hope everybody understands that although we are not omnipotent, we are definitely powerful as beings because we have the ability to choose, engage, we have autonomy. And I think sometimes we just forget. So what I want to do today is raise our awareness and remind us of the power we do have and treat ourselves in this compassionate, self-compassionate way that even when we feel like we've no choice, we still have choices. And to understand that in order to live fully in our power, we've got to unpack it, which means basically kind of, you know, if you were on a trip, you'd be throwing, you know, kind of pulling things out of the suitcase, trying to figure out the perfect thing for this moment. So I want to start with this idea of us. So I want us to unpack first the power of our presence. And with that thought, I want us to think about where we're showing up, how we're showing up, and with whom we're showing up, and for what. So something very practical. What I often share with my clients is you have a calendar, you have a specific amount of days and time. Your presence, when you bring it to something or someone, you are offering it and saying that you approve, you agree, or you in some way align with this person, place, thing, or event, or what have you, when you show. So for me, you know, yesterday I went to a virtual jazz concert. I show up and I approve this message, like, this is something I like. These people, this organization, this whatever, the power of my presence and where I take it and how I deliver it to something. The people around me are observing this and saying, that's either, you know, good. They're making a judgment. It's good, bad, indifferent, something, whatever. But they're also making a judgment about me based on where I bring my presence to. So when we are showing up for things, particularly people, I'm going to talk a lot about people in this unpacking our power, because a lot of times that's what's keeping us from unpacking our power. So when you think about the power of your presence, I often invite people to consider time is not without limits. So you need to kind of prioritize where you bring your presence. You need to, not kind of, you actually do need to, because that calendar only has so many days. That 24 hours is not infinite, right? We all get the same number of hours in every single day to achieve something, do something, connect with people, and all of that. So that's the first area that I want us, and I'm not going to do the whole training or what have you on unpacking your power, but I want to give you a few principles, a few things to start with as you observe your own life and care for yourself. So where are you? Where are you showing up, and with who and why? That's the first thing. The second is kind of a segue from there, the power of your influence. I had a representative, well, someone who was running for a particular office, basically contact me and say, I just want to tap into your network. And, that's fine. But what it had me to realize was that even if I didn't give them money or didn't show up at their campaign, rallies and whatnot, they saw something. They saw that people, male, female, old, young, whatever, there are constituents who they might need to move their cause forward that were connected to me, that because they move in a different circle, they may not. So the power of our influence, we have to recognize it as an important thing. We have to center it in such a way that we are willing to protect it. So if I had to give an assignment for this particular piece of unpacking, it would be to protect the power of your influence. Because once you have yielded it and given it over to somebody who you have not vetted, you don't know their intention, how they intend to either use your people or help your people or support them or something, you haven't even vetted it. You're just so excited that somebody wants to connect with you that you have completely disregarded their intent, that you assume because you have good intent, they do as well. So protect, as you unpack this particular aspect of your power, influence, protect it, okay? So the next one, again, tied to this, the power of your position. So I am talking about your literal and figurative position in the world, not just necessarily an organization, not just necessarily you're the third born or the firstborn or the, whatever, but all of those things factor into where you are positioned. So, and I'll use myself as an example. So, I work independent of an organization because I work for myself. So I'm positioned as an entrepreneur. I'm positioned as an independent contractor. I'm also positioned in the world as a leader, if you will. So a community leader. I may not be leading an organization. I may not be leading hundreds of people, but someone who is a thought leader, someone who is even an advocate in many spaces and thereby deemed a leader. So when my presence, much like my influence, shows up in a room, there are assumptions made about my position. I have clients who jokingly, they don't know it's a joke to me, but they refer to me as Doc, like assuming that I may be in academia, I may be a doctor of psychology or sociology or what have you because of the work that I do. So sometimes people will assume a position for you based on the nature of your presence or how you move through the world. We're going to talk more about that in just a minute too. But these thoughts, these ideas are tied to a very often neglected way of being. Like we don't think about presence. So we have these sayings like, when you're communicating, be empathic and be present with people, right? That's the way of being a good listener. That is the way of being someone who people trust. That is the way of being a connector. Be present, be in the moment. And so what I'm asking us to consider today is raising our awareness around how we are present, right? So unpacking your power around presence, your presence in particular, means you have to first consider when you walk into a room, is there some degree of confidence about why you're even there? And have you considered if it's a particular agenda, if it's a particular space where people are talking about issues that matter, have you considered how you frame this issue or concern and what you might say about it in a concise and reasonable, well thought out way? Did you just show up like kind of what my grandma would say, flying by the seat of your pants? Your presence matters. Your presence can shift the situation if you have given thought to the value of your presence, the power of your presence. So I will lead with consider your own presence. If you are invited into a room, consider why. If you are asked to voice concerns about a particular issue or whatever, that's presence. So even if you're not physically, like we're social distancing right now, Margaret, but it's still presence. The fact that you gave yourself to it in some way, a thought, they put you on the agenda, they included a quote from something you said in times past, some data that you may have collected, or even your marginalization can show up as presence. They put in there how many people living in poverty in Memphis right now that are single mothers, and how many women right now affected. This is domestic violence awareness. How many women are impacted and affected by this? That's presence as well. Like you are showing up in spaces. So just consider, raise your awareness around your own presence. When you are present with people, you bring your essence. Like I'll say this, Margaret, like sometimes you walk in a room and you just haven't even said anything and you make people feel a certain kind of way. It can be good or it can be a whole hot mess, but that's part of it. So I'm sorry, I got tangled up right there. Power of your position, your position. So again, people refer to me as doc and whatnot and so on because they don't really know like my background. Like, is she a professor-ish type? What is she bringing with her? So the position that you hold, people will refer to you as their mentor vicariously. You don't even know that they like, tell me, baby, who are you again? And different kinds of things are happening because of the position, the posture you hold in the world. So again, those two, the presence and position really tie so closely together, but I do want you to separate the position that you hold from your presence, your essence. And that's why I put those two together twice, but recognizing that position is key. So if you hold a position of power and influence in people's minds or hearts, that's a huge responsibility. And not to neglect it because you don't care about it. Like when people do make that reference, I recognize they're seeing something in me as a leader that means something a little deeper than you just the coach. I never refer to myself in that way, but I'm just using it as a reference, okay? So the next one that we're gonna do, we're gonna talk about the power of your voice. So much like, again, all of these tie together. So this is one big old happy family of unpacking of power. This one's the bathing suit, one's the formal gown for the evening, one is the play clothes. So all of this unpacking that we're doing, we got stuff in there to hike the trail if we want to. So we got all of this stuff is tied together. It's part of our essential tools in my mind for living a thriving life. So the power of your voice. I tell every person who comes in contact with me, but particularly my clients, Find your voice. We are influenced by a lot of things: social media, the news, pop culture, all of the things, all of the things. At some point, we need to sit quietly and figure out what part of what's going on in my head and in my heart belongs to me, and what part of what's going on in my head and my heart is other. And you pick whatever other is. Your mama telling you you should do this and you should do that, or your family deciding for you, or your peer group deciding for you, or Fox 13 or whomever deciding for you what you think about something. So the power of your voice means, you know what? I feel this way about these things because this. That is your voice. That is saying, when I enter a room and I don't agree with popular opinion, and it may cause some blowback, pushback, resistance, or what have you, kind of, to what end? What you gonna do? What, you gonna fight me? What, what? We can disagree. It's okay. But I'm going to bring my voice into this space and say, particularly, I like to, I end up in a lot of rooms because people, my professionalism may be an indication to them that I play respectability politics. I end up in the room, they're sitting next to me, they're talking about JoJo and Alicia and saying, well, JoJo need to pull his pants up and Alicia need a longer skirt on. And I'm saying, but why? Excuse me? What does that have to do with their intelligence, lack thereof, their resource? Why are you so focused on that you don't see their humanity, that you don't see their value? And so for me, a lot of times my voice is invited into the room and people don't even know what my voice is. Like they're looking at me, but they haven't been listening. I always say, when people are surprised by my directness, I'd be like, well, you haven't been listening. I've been this way since day one. It shouldn't have snuck up on you. And so it's often that people have assumed that if they invite you, you will take on their voice and their opinions. But if you have already taken some time to sit with yourself and figure out what it is that you think, believe, and that is your voice, and you've begun to say those things out loud, like, I do believe that people should have autonomy over their own voice, over their own bodies. I do believe that we live in a rape culture where we're telling our boys to hurry up, and we're telling our girls, could you wait a little minute? You got the rest of your life to da-da-da, and you're the carrier and creator of all life. Don't take it so lightly, or whatever we're telling them. And so we got this push-pull conflict going on, but we won't even acknowledge it. So voice, in a lot of ways, we have to recognize it and own it. So that's the power of voice. The next one, much like influence, is the power of your connections. Now, this one is going to sneak up on you a little bit. I should save it for last, but I'm not. I am so weary for so many people that say, so-and-so is my friend, and so-and-so is my this, and so-and-so, I've known them for 30 years. Or in your case, maybe 10, because you're brand new, you're still a baby. So just new to this whole thing, but it still applies. There are people in our lives who are taking up space. And honestly, Margaret, and the rest of y'all, all y'all, I'm talking to everybody, they add no value. They add no value. And so I am not saying, people often misunderstand when I talk about connections and how to vet those connections and how to prioritize those connections. I'm not telling anybody to throw anybody away. But what I ask people to do is look at the 5 people they are spending the most of their time with. Look at the people closest to you who you've got their ear, and they have your ear. Look at the people whose presence and influence, what they think about things and how they behave themselves and how they're going about life, what they care about. Now you trying to be vegan or vegetarian. They like, girl, I'm gonna be always so-and-so, and I'm gonna meet the item. And all of these judgments and all these things, instead of just appreciating, like, girl, that's a great idea. I love that you're taking care of yourself, or whatever the case may be. But what we as a people tend to not do is look at our connections through a lens of truth. We are looking at people for how we want them to be versus how they actually are. And I'm going to give you an example. Many of my clients come to me and they say, my friend, she said so-and-so, so-and-so. And I say, okay. There are 3 particular instances that I can think of that happened in the last few months that add to my weariness. So, for example, Margaret, if you are someone who aspires to have a certain career or go down a particular path, right? And you've got a quote unquote friend who's already pursuing it, or who's done well, or by your estimation has done well, right? If that quote unquote friend has never said any of these things I'm about to say to you, you might want to reevaluate whether or not they're your friend or they've considered themselves your competition. Because if they are, say, for example, a coach, they're a coach, I'm a coach. So I'll use that as an example. If your friend is a coach, you aspire to be a coach, and they have never said to you, hey, I've got these resources, or I know about this training that's coming up, or, excuse me, this new certification. They've never invited you to a coaching opportunity. They send you no referrals. They haven't even helped you, if it's in the beginning stages, to vet your vision and say, hey, have you thought about what materials you're going to be using for your clients? Have you, if they've never done any of those things for you, or said, hey, I don't really have a lot of time to contribute right now, but let me know if you're having something, I'll come and support you, right? And maybe that's a way of offering critique to it, or just whatever. If your friend or these top 5 people, be it a close friend, a college buddy, or your bestie, whatever, your mama, your father, I don't even know how people do these dynamics, but they never asked you any of those things, you might want to reevaluate their position in your life. Doesn't mean they can't stay, but what you're doing at the top is you're making room for the support that you need. So the reason you need to evaluate your connections and unpack the power around connections is because a lot of times we waste time calling people or inviting them to positions in our life that they're not qualified for. They have no capacity for it. And they've proven it to us over and over again. They're on center stage somewhere across the world, and you like, how can I, what can I, and how? And they're like, nah, girl, you ain't ready for that, or whatever. Not even putting you on a path or saying, here's what you might consider, or here's how I can support you. So not going to belabor that, but I tell everybody regularly, look at your connections, because there's a lot of power in your connections. And I will say this. Our character is often under assault, and we're not even aware of it by way of our connections. And so I say this. So if I'm on a date or something like that, and the person I'm with is really, oh my God, they just smitten with me, and they just, I'm such a big deal. And then they talking crazy to the server, And the people, you know, on the front line, if you will, we're realizing now who really is essential, right? So when they speak disparagingly to that person, I'm taking note, because the reason they're being nice to me is because they think I can give them something or do something for them. This person they're kind of looking down on because they don't feel that this person necessarily has value except for bringing them their food. So I'm paying attention to the connections and deciding again where to put people, how much time I give them, how much resource I give them based on how they're treating the people around them, not me. What they don't know is I see them being nice to me, but I also see them being a whole fool over here. And I'm actually paying more attention to that than this. So the power of your connections. And again, look at who you're spending time with. Create you a list that makes sense. Go through that list and say, you know what? I don't, you know, disconnect from them because they are this way, but I need to prioritize where they are on my list because I've got to make room for who I want to be giving my energy and time to. So the next one, I think that's 6. Yeah. The power, this one's really good. The power of your no. So I love that Shonda Rhimes wrote a whole book about the year of yes, right? And that's really cool. That's really cool. So she needed that because she was a, you know, powerful woman out there doing her thing and building her career. And she realized she was neglecting some things that were really close to her heart, her family, her children, you know, whatever. And so she decided to say yes to more things. But I think by default, most of us say yes to too much. We don't, again, back to this calendar, how much time we have, how many days we have, how, you know, 7 days in a week, and we all get the same 24 hours. If you are saying yes to every request, can I borrow? Will you come? Can you go? Everything. Can I count on you for so-and-so, so-and-so? That's grandma and them. That's the language they use. You know, baby, you know, I need you to promise me you will see about your folks if when I'm gone. Like some of them folks them abused you and molested you and whatever. Like, no, I ain't gonna see about Uncle Joe. No, somebody else gonna have to see about him. Or maybe you do, I don't know. But making some clear decisions about your yes. So I tell all of my clients, God, the universe, whatever you believe in, when your yes is real, everything you need will begin to show up for you. But in order to get to your yes, you got to learn to say no to the things you do not want, the things that do not align with your purpose, your vision, and your values. You've got to be show enough, as my folks would say, because I'm from the country. You got to be show enough for show that this is what you want before you say yes to it. So practice the art of no. And I tell my newbies to know, to practice. Your practice may sound something like this. I don't have time for it right now. So it's not necessarily no, or you may say, I've got something on my schedule. And I say, it's not a lie, because you need to be on your schedule every single day somewhere. You should be on your schedule. You should be a priority for yourself at some point in your day, whether it's your morning meditation, your afternoon, whatever it is. So being on your own schedule. So the power of your no, unpacking the power of your no. No to giving away your resources, no to giving away your time, no to giving away your commitment freely without considering what you want. Then that segues me to the power of your yes. As I said, and I'm only going to say this about this particular talking point, the power of your yes. Again, when you say yes, when I say for real, that means your actions align with it, your thoughts, your relationships, everything you started gathering the people around you to support what it is that you're trying to do, that's when you know your yes is real. So considering your yes for your whole purpose, not just in an instant or a moment, these fleeting kind of, oh, I wanna, and yeah, tomorrow you wanna, but to consider for real, what you want your life to give meaning to. So, making sure that what you're saying yes to makes sense. That brings me to another important thing that will anchor all of these things together: the power of your boundaries. So once you've said yes or no to whatever that thing is, you need to set some clear boundaries and expectations around it. And I'll give you a really good example. So if you've said yes to a new career, a new choice of whatever, you may have to. So for me, I'll just talk about myself for a moment to give you a real way to look at this, because I try to be transparent. If you start a business, if that's what you're saying yes to, you're saying no to corporate America. I'm not going back. I don't care who gets set on fire. I don't care what happens. I don't have a desire to do that again. So I'm removing that thing and making room for this thing I say I want, which is this business. It may mean that setting boundaries around your resources, again, saying, so for the next 6 months, Madia Nim, Kanulu, my brother, my sister, my favorite friend, I cannot loan anybody a single dime. In fact, if they want to give me some money, I'll sure enough take it. But I do not, I know they will possibly feel like I don't love them if I don't keep giving them my everything, but I have to focus on what it is that I say that I want. So setting the boundary means, again, I can't be as liberal with my resources. I have to use my no for this situation and set a clear boundary. What setting boundaries means also having a conversation about expectations. So listen, Aunt Lulu, I know I've been helping out with your medication for the last year and a half or whatever, but for the next 6 months, while I'm focused on building my business, I won't be able to do that. I know that Cousin Jerry and other folks, have offered, if we could shift some of that responsibility to them, that would be great, because right now I'm not able. That's setting an expectation tied to the boundary. Because again, if you don't respect the boundary and make it clear, neither will other people. If you don't know your why around it, it's movable. Like, well, maybe next week I can do it, but this week I can't. Or maybe next month I can do it, but this month I can't. So we have got to set the boundary and then have some expectations so that people aren't confused when your behavior changes. You get more support when you communicate the boundaries and why and so forth. You don't owe it to people, but it's just something to consider for people that you want to keep in close relationship with. So we're wrapping it up here. So I have this one, it sounds a little strange to people, but it's to me very necessary. The power of your will. Unpacking the power of your will. As a child, I was very strong-willed, is what they would call it. Really means asserting myself in terms of my choices. Like, I don't want to wear that. And I could tell people why. Like, I could climb a tree better in a dress than I can in pants, I was a tomboy, and a lot of things that I wanted to do, people thought I was too cute to do them or too girly or whatever. Like, they would be looking, I jumped off barns. If you look at my knees, you will see like I got cuts and scrapes and all of the stuff. I was following the boys everywhere, BB guns and shooting marbles, and I wasn't playing with dolls. I hated them, actually. But anyway, the power of your will, recognizing your freedom to choose. And I know we're coming up to the end here, so I'm going to make this really, really quick. when you don't know that God has given you a free will, the freedom to choose, even God honors our choice to make a bad decision. People may not agree with our choices, but that doesn't mean we don't have that ability. So unpack that. Think about your will. Think about, and it really aligns with the word itself. What will you do when no one is telling you how you should do it and what to do? My will says I am going to fight for what is right, even when people are telling me I'm wrong, and don't agree with me. So that's part of me exercising my choice, my freedom to choose, my free will. And the last thing, I have a bonus, but it's tied to all of this stuff: the power of your purpose. I love this quote by Miles Monroe. And it says, when the purpose of a thing is not known, abuse is inevitable. So a lot of times we are living in spaces, choosing jobs, choosing people, doing things that are not purposeful. They're not a part of our purpose in the world. And I say this: if you still don't know your purpose, there's one thing I can advise you about, and I've known this about myself before what I'm choosing to do as a career even was a thing. I ask a lot of questions, and I really seek to understand other people. Some people may say that's a social worker, psychologist, whatever. But for me, the title, the thing that it rests under is coaching. Sorry. But here's the thing. What I ask you to consider and ask yourself is, what is it that you always find yourself doing that you just can't help it? I mean, unless it's something that harms you, what is it that you find yourself doing that you just can't help it, right? That is an indication of the direction you need to go in and unpack this thing called purpose. And it may change what it looks like over the course of time. You may be a teacher over here, you may be a whatever, but in its essence, it kind of shows up in the world, helping people overcome something, being a really good listener and helping people navigate solutions to problems. That's strategist and different kinds of things. You don't have to call yourself that in order to be that, right? So I say to people, that's one of the things that's essential to unpacking. And so those are my 10 things that we will unpack. Margaret, did I leave anything out? Hopefully you were over there making some notes. And so what I want to finish with in this last little bit, and I've been talking fast because this is like a whole hour plus worth of stuff. But what I want you to ask yourself about your unpacking your power is there congruence? Does what I say, how I show up, how I care for people, does it match? Does my audio match my video? You know, you ever watch a movie, something, and they talking and then the words have to catch up? It feels kind of strange when that happens. So there is this thing that we must do, and that's to make ourselves responsible for all of our power. There's another quote, with great power comes great responsibility. And so as you unpack your power and consider how you want to show up in the world and what that even means for you, when people see you, are you believable? Are you authentic? Even if they don't like how you show up, you know, are you being congruent? If you just hateful and don't nobody like you, well, at least be that all the time until you figure out something else. But don't be nice on Tuesday and then have everybody think, you know, people from Mars abducted you on Wednesday and inserted somebody else. At least be consistent and congruent. So that's my Evolving Women webinar contribution. I have enjoyed sharing with you all. Margaret, you've been a wonderful little hostess. Excuse me. We're not going to gender conform, but a wonderful host for this session, and I don't know what more I could add. I hope I did all right with my conciseness. I tried my best.
Yes, yes, definitely. I want to say, Coach Payton, I appreciate everything that you've given us today. My favorite part about it is figuring out where people are supposed to be in your life. Take the 5 people and figure it out, weed out who's not helping you grow. So that was my favorite part, honestly. But again, I want to thank you so much for doing this, taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to myself and the people that are out there. And for the people that are even more interested and they want to know even more about Sharolyn Payton, how can they reach you?
So I am most available on my website. They can schedule an appointment, a one-on-one, a meeting, whatever. And so that's Payton, PaytonPlace, coaching.com. They can send me an email, but I generally will respond quicker. I got a couple of emails today asking if they could connect with me or refer. And I didn't respond because some of that stuff is just spam. Because if I don't get a personalized email saying, I heard you talk on so-and-so, or fill out the contact page and provide me with some context for how you want to move forward, that's generally the best way. I do have office hours. My office phone is 901-421-8595. Again, if you call and leave a message, please let me know what it is that you are in need of, and I will call you back. If I'm available, I'll actually answer the phone, and most people are surprised by that. I am on Twitter and on Instagram. I don't do a lot on those social spaces, but it's the same, at my Coach Payton, because just Coach Payton was already taken, so I had to add that my. And those are the easiest. And I'm on LinkedIn. I don't do a lot on there either, but I try. This social media thing is kind of hard to keep up with, but I do try to stay connected.
Okay, y'all heard her. You check out the website, and that is Payton Place Coaching. Coaching.com, and be as detailed as you can. Let her know what you need. Let her know what you want. And she said she has business hours. Just be as detailed as possible and reach out and get some of this great information that we have received today. Again, I cannot thank you enough for joining us for this month's edition of the Evolving Women webinar. And for the people that have shared our video and are in watch parties, if you can't get enough of Sister Reach, why don't you go ahead and follow our Facebook page? It's Sister Reach. That's SISTERREACH. We also have Instagram and Twitter, and we have the same handle. That's Sister Reach, just plain old Sister Reach. And also, by the way, check out our website at www.sisterreach.org for community events, safe sex kits, and volunteer opportunities. Again, I keep saying it, but thank you all so much for tuning in for October's episode of the Evolving Women webinar. Be sure to like and share for your friends and your family, and we will see you all in November. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.